China has been controlling the supply or the source of these elements and manipulating a little bit of the pricing and not letting the industry grow organically outside of China. If the West do not prepare alternative sources of supply, it could be in a great trouble when China is not able even to source all the countries in the West.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for June 3rd through June 10th, 2024 while supplies last. First, we feature 2023 1-ounce Gold Britannia at just $59 over spot. We also have backdated 1-ounce Silver Britannia at $3.10 over spot. Next, we have pre-33 XF Gold $10 Liberty coins at just $59 over melt. And finally, we have a highly limited supply of 1/10 ounce Platinum Britannia at $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have a first-time guest today. Francois Motte is the CFO of Aclara Resources, a environmentally responsible mineral extraction company for rare earth metals, bringing that extraction into the Western Hemisphere, into the Americas, rather than increasing our dependence on China for rare earths going forward. Francois, thank you for joining us here on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you very much for the invitation. We're very excited to basically explain what we're doing. I think it's an innovation, mostly everything that goes around electrification, and we're trying to make it as most sustainable as possible.
I have a background, as much of our audience is aware, in manufacturing process engineering, and I was fascinated by the clear presentation video. I would encourage everyone at the end of this, after watching our interview, to go to your website. We'll put a link to your website in the description of this video so that they can watch that video about your closed loop circular manufacturing process by which you extract the rare earth minerals that you're after without undue consumption of water, without undue output of waste tailings, that sort of thing, because of extremely high, like 95% high recycling rates within the process. So a closed loop process. It's fascinating, and it shows, I think it answers one of the questions that we've heard a lot of, I would say, anxiety around a dilemma that there's a push for electrification, with electric vehicles, all kinds of things, electrification, and yet there's a controversy around, is it really necessary? Because, is climate change what people say it is? And there's controversies around that. But there's one controversy that's come up is the same parties that are advocating mandating certain levels of electric vehicles, that sort of thing, are also restricting mining operations in some of the same jurisdictions that they want to have electrification. So it's like we want the benefits without the actual mining. And yet Aclara has taken a special approach to that by trying to make the mining itself part of their environmental focus, which is, I think, commendable and fascinating. And it's not easy. It's much, in some ways, it's easier to think of a process where you don't have to take the pains and the extra efforts to do this closed loop and closed circular cycle type processing. So we want to hear more about that. But first of all, if we could just talk about the broad economic background that is driving some of these mandates for rare earths. And there's another element to it too, and that's the aspect of strategic onshoring of critical materials, where countries are realizing that if they are dependent upon unfriendly jurisdictions for the sourcing of their critical materials, that they better find jurisdictions perhaps in the same hemisphere, perhaps that are more politically friendly to their country to depend on for sources of those critical materials. Could you maybe address both of those topics? It's what's driving the big demand for rare earths going forward, and why is it important for countries to look to jurisdictions that are not likely to cut off their supply of those critical materials?
Absolutely. No, very happy to provide a wide overview. So basically, rare earths serve for many applications, and historically, these applications has been very niche. It mostly used in technology. But now, with the electrification of the fossil fuels vehicles fleet, there has been a big change in the structure of the rare earths industry, because the electric vehicles demand that is coming is enormous, and it will be demanding for the most expensive rare earths that exist. So that demand, together with other applications such as wind turbines that also use rare earths that are important for the clean energy transition, not both together generate a demand that has not existed before in the industry. So that is related with why we needed to a strategic sourcing of these elements. The reason is because today they are 100% close, nearby 100% sourced by one country, which is China. And looking to the projections, we see that the demand will be so high that we don't see a clear way of supplying enough rare earths to meet that demand. China can be, of course, always a solution, but there's a couple of problems with China, which is basically, first, China is the competitor for Western, for example, automakers or OEMs, producers of wind turbines. So you don't want that your competitor controls a strategic source for your manufacturing of your autos or vehicles or wind turbines. And secondly, due to these geopolitical tensions that have been occurring, basically because China has been controlling the supply or the source of these elements and manipulating a little bit of the pricing and not letting the industry grow organically outside of China, has also creates an environment where you cannot rely only on one country to source these strategic elements. And we have seen this, we have seen the tariffs that the US have imposed now in electric vehicles and also in strategic elements such as rare earths that come from China. And this creates an environment where it becomes very difficult, again, to just rely on one country. In addition to that, China at some point will source first their internal demand, which is the biggest demand for electric vehicles. Today, China is the biggest share of electric vehicles produced around the world. So, of course, China will prioritize supplying their own market. And in the future, if the West do not prepare alternative sources of supply, it could be in a great trouble when China is not able even to source all the countries in the West.
In the face of this expected surging demand, and I would add, in addition to electric vehicles and wind turbines, a lot of other parts of our lives are being electrified in ways that may require those. I just saw an advertisement on the television this morning for all yard work, landscaping type machinery, from zero-turn mowers and everything to being all electric. So that electrification, both for quietness sake and that sort of thing, seem to be coming. And there's other drivers for that demand. What has the expected supply and demand imbalance been doing in the price of rare earth elements over the past, say, quarter or so, or year? And you mentioned tariffs looming ahead, and how will that likely affect the price of rare earths to industries going forward?
Of course. So basically, I would say that the prices, one would think that with the demand-supply imbalance coming in the, I would say, short to medium term, by the end of the decade, I would think that the prices would be increasing of earth. But it's happening the contrary. They are decreasing. And we have seen a quite important drop in prices in the last 2 years since the beginning of 2022. And these prices of rare earths are only issued in China. They are the main source of these prices. And the reason or the consequence of lowering these prices has been that the projects are struggling a lot in continuing their development, and of course in getting funding for that. But not only the projects. No, we've seen operations such as MP Materials Online as reporting red numbers in their last financial statements. So it is clear that those prices will not work for the standards that the West requires in order to put these mining projects into production and also building the value chain. Reason why the consequence has been the tariffs that will be applied in the next months to come and in the next years. And those tariffs will help decoupling a little bit the industry from the West to China. This is not easy, and it's not clear for anyone on how it's going to happen, but the reality is that the environmental requirements in the West are quite high. You were just speaking about that at the beginning, and that demands costs that today, unfortunately, cannot be supported with the pricing we're seeing coming out from China. So we see that the decoupling will start to happen, but then it's important to also understand what is the landscape of rare earths. Not all rare earths are equally important. There are some rare earths that are more abundant in the West. There are some rare earths that are less abundant. And I think it's important sometimes to give a double click on that, because the main source of rare earths in the West that today occurs within two companies, which is MP Materials and Lynas, is the light rare earth source. So it's only solved part of the problem. And if we look at the project's pipeline, most of the projects that we see outside of China are also light rare earths. But what happens with the heavy rare earths? The heavy rare earths are today in a very critical situation, because 100%, and this is fully verified, 100% of the heavy rare earths are sourced by China, and there's no clear. There are no projects almost outside of China that could supply heavy rare earths. We are one of them. There are a couple of more, but you can count them with your fingers. So that's the part where it's more worrying, because you will need both for both lights and heavy rare earths in order to meet with the demand coming from this energy transition from electric vehicles and wind turbines. So that is the part where we are more focused on, and we think that there will be a more decoupling in the heavier side from China, because it will require much higher prices in order to incentivize the exploring and the investment in heavy rare earth opportunities. And there's, again, in the pipeline in the next 10 years, there's not many where that money can be deployed. There are just a couple of options, and I think the West need to support them as much as possible.
I'm going to include a link in the description of this video to an article from Reuters magazine recently, Rare Earths Seen Rebounding in the Second Half of 2024. They say, rare earth prices have likely bottomed out and are poised to rise later in this year on demand from electric vehicles, wind power, and as dominant producer China is expected to pull back on their expanded output quotas. So sounds like a lot of the analysts from Reuters and beyond are saying what you're saying, and that is that the fundamental drivers based on supply and demand imbalance are likely to increase prices of rare earths going forward. So that's even separate from the tariff topic that you also brought up as well. So in the face of that, can you talk to us about how Aclara differentiates itself from other potential companies that people could invest in, potential investors could look to as participating in the expected strength of the rare earth market going forward?
Absolutely. I think we can highlight four distinctive strengths of the company. The first one is that first we have the highest grades in relation to heavy rare earths from ionic clay projects in the world, or at least outside of China. And what we know of China, we're also having the highest rate. So that's an attribute which is very important, because today the main source of heavy rare earths are these ionic clay, the type of deposits. And we have the two of them that have the highest grades outside of China in relation to heavy rare earths. Reason why, why we have this project, because we have always been focusing on the heavy rare earth side, but we have been able to find them and to develop them and showing them that all the value is based on these heavy rare earths, and we want the exposure on the heavy rare earth side because of the demand-supply imbalance that I was just talking about. Secondly, which is the strength that is in our core, is the development of the extraction process, which we have called circular mineral harvesting. This extraction process was developed inside the company. It was developed together with the University of Toronto, and it brings a lot of environmental attributes while we are extracting the rare earths on an efficient way. So I'm going to explain the process quickly, not to go too much in detail, but I think it's important because I've worked in mining for 10 years, in traditional mining, let's say precious metals, and this is something that I've never heard in relation to mining. So our deposit is clays, and these clays are located in the surface part. They are very shallow deposit, which only deepens around 20 meters. We don't need explosives to extract them. We just used an excavator and a truck, and we can truck the clays to a plant. So the extraction is fairly simple. Secondly, we do not use crushing or milling. And that is important because in the mining industry, the two processes that use more energy is crushing and milling, and that generates a big carbon footprint. So we don't have them, and that allows us to have low energy consumption. And then the metallurgy of ionic clays is extremely simple. You basically mix the clays with water and a common fertilizer, in our case is ammonium sulfate, and you do it in a mild acid environment of pH 4, and we can recover the rare earths with that in 15 minutes. And why? Because we do not intend to affect the mineral particle. We just recover the ions of rare earths that have been liberated in millions of years and that has been absorbed, by the clays. So that's why in China they do the popular in situ leaching, where they throw exactly this solution to the ground and they extract it from the bottom of the mountain. Unfortunately, that's a very polluting way of doing it because you are throwing the chemicals directly to the ground. We do it all contained in tanks. So we recover the rare earth in 15 minutes, and then we increase the pH to basically remove some impurities that could be problematic for further processing, such as calcium, magnesium, and aluminum. And finally, we raise the pH to neutral, to 7, and then we precipitate a carbonate of rare earths, which is a concentrate, including all the rare earths together, which is highly charged in the heavy rare earths. That's the very easy process. But the magic in our process comes with a water treatment facility that we have included as part of the design, where all the water used in the process is purified, and that purification of the water, or that water that is purified, we use it to clean the clays that have been contacted with this fertilizer. So we reduce all these ammonium sulfate levels of the clays, and these clays, as they were not crushed and milled, also maintain their original physical properties, and we can place them back to site, not needing any liner, and those are not even considered tailings. We can revegetate those clays directly. So this is an operation that will not have a tailings dam. And this water treatment facility allows us to recirculate 95% of the water. The water we lose is just basically in humidity, because when we press filter the clays, we cannot get back to the original humidity. So we insert the clays with 14%, we take them out with 18%. So we lose. But that water, in the case of the Penco module in Chile, for example, is going to be sourced from 100% recycled source, which is basically the water that from a nearby city. The water utility company collects that water, and these are gray waters, treats it, and discharges it in the sea, and we're going to take that water to complete the water balance that we need. And then this recirculation also allows us to recirculate 99% of the ammonium sulfate. So it's very efficient from a consumption standpoint of the main reagent. So we try to make it, we design this with circular parameters, and we design it, always looking at basically having the highest standard or the lowest environmental impact. Of course, this differs materially to what China does. So this is, in any case, more expensive, but it brings all these environmental attributes that again, it has not been heard before in mining. And then, sorry, just to finalize with the final two strengths of the company. One, the third one is that we are starting the vertical integration strategy. So we are not going to produce just a concentrate. We're developing a separation project in the US within a subsidiary called Aclara Technologies. And we are developing also a project of metals and alloys. So we are not only intending to be a raw material exporters, we're looking to create the value aggregate products that the permanent magnet industry will require in order to source the automakers or wind turbine. And finally, all of this is supported by long-term shareholders. And I think that is a very important attribute when you're talking about projects or junior mining companies. Our shareholder is the Hochschild Mining Group, and they are long-term viewers of this business case, and there are strongly financial backers. So it allows us to advance at a good pace in difficult environment of prices compared to other junior mining companies that need to raise money every year, and it's very difficult when the market conditions are not supporting the business. So we are getting ready for the moment where the industry, where we believe the industry will improve a lot in relation to market conditions. And summing to Hochschild Mining, we add CAP, where we recently made a strategic partnership with them in the Chilean project. And CAP is also an important iron ore producer. They're the 5th biggest in the world. And they also wanted to diversify from iron ore to rare earth through Aclara. So I would say that it's a strong processing I would say technology, in the correct elements, which are the heavy rare earths, backed by two important shareholders that want even to go, to take this not only for mining but also for to create value aggregate products. In summary,
the other thing we haven't mentioned is the way that I found out about your company, Aclara, was through Rick Rule, and because we'll both be attending the Rule Symposium on Natural Resource Investing this next month, July, in Boca Raton, Florida. And our audience is well aware, and he's mentioned this to us before, that he only invites exhibitors there for companies that he has personally done his due diligence on, both from a management standpoint, from a financial balance sheet standpoint, from a long-term investment prospect standpoint, but also on their questions that they are seeking answers for and the approach that they're taking. So he's already vetted the company and thinks that it's one of the very best, and that's why he's attracted it to his to be an exhibitor at his upcoming conference, which is it brings a lot of credibility with our subscribers and with me, since we've known him all along through the years. Any new news that you're expecting to come out that our viewers should be watching for in the next few months?
Absolutely. There are two important milestones about to happen. One is that we are submitting the Penco module EIA for evaluation. So the Penco module is a project that is quite advanced from the technical side, and the main bottleneck has been the permitting. Reason why we brought CAP, which is a Chilean important company, to improve all the permitting process of Aclara, and that they accompany Aclara through the evaluation. So we are filing that EIA. That EIA has been reviewed by CAP. It has been a thorough process that has been taken from the last year until now, and this EIA is going to be filed in the next 2 weeks. Then we recently announced drilling results in our Carina module in Brazil. Those drilling results were a 2,000 meter campaign that we did with reverse circulation at depth. Initially we drilled very shallow drill holes with auger, and we increased that from 8 meters up to 30 meters in some cases. And with that drilling, we are going to be updating our mineral resource estimate, and that's going to be issued by the end of July. And that will potentially bring an important increase in resources. And with those new resources, we are supporting an update of the technical study we released in January. So we are going to be issuing in August the updated PEA based on those new resources. So those are the main. We in the case of the vertical integration, we pretend also to issue by the end of Q3 a conceptual study on the separation project that we are advancing in the US, and that will allow us to to understand much better the investment, the cost, and of course continuing with the development going forward. Those are the main, I would say, short-term catalysts. But in the meantime, we keep advancing we will keep advancing in Chile, the evaluation of the EIA that we're going to file, and in Brazil, we keep advancing with the pre-feasibility study that we started at the beginning of the year and the environmental baselines that we also started at the beginning of the year. So we also might be communicating to the market any updates in relation to those activities.
Well, I look forward personally to meeting your company's representatives at the Rule Conference in Boca Raton, Florida next month and getting to know you in person. And it's been a great introduction to your company here. I'm grateful for Rick Rule for bringing us together and to you for bringing this news about your company to our viewers and subscribers. It's heartwarming for me to see, both as someone who cares about the environment and someone who has some knowledge of manufacturing process engineering, to see the concentrated efforts being made to really solve meaningful problems in a way that doesn't create new problems along the way. And that's very encouraging. So thank you very much for introducing your company, Aclara Resources, to our viewers and subscribers here on Liberty and Finance, and look forward to having you on again.
Thank you very much, and definitely we'll meet in Boca Raton.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for June 3rd through June 10th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature 2023 1-ounce Gold Britannia at just $59 over spot. We also have backdated 1-ounce Silver Britannia at $3.10 over spot. Next, we have pre-33 XF Gold $10 Liberty coins at just $59 over melt. And finally, we have a highly limited supply of 1/10 ounce Platinum Britannia at $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.